Retirement withdrawal strategies. Someone in the comments section of a previous video raised a very good point about withdrawal strategies. And I usually don't talk about withdrawal strategies on this channel because it's extremely complicated. Exactly why is this so complicated? Stay with me. First things first, anything said in this video should not be interpreted as advice. I do encourage you to meet with a financial advisor or speak with your accountant before following up on anything I have to say. These are just general thoughts and perceptions, and do not act on any of this information in this video as concrete advice. First, withdrawal strategies in retirement is actually very important. It's important for taxation. It's also important for stretching your money as long as possible. And most people do not think about withdrawal strategies of the assets that they've accumulated over a lifetime until they're at the threshold of retirement. And I often think that's a mistake. Withdrawal strategies is something that's really planned out decades in advance. And speaking specifically about baby boomers and silent generation, a lot of people in the baby boomer and silent generation only knew about the traditional 401k or traditional IRA. They didn't really know anything about the Roth. The Roth IRA 401k has come into popular vernacular probably in the past 5 to 7 years. And as a result, most baby boomers, silent generation, have all of their retirement savings or 90% of their retirement savings in a traditional IRA or 401k account. Now for Gen X, millennials, and Gen Zers, they've had a lot more time to learn about the Roth 401k traditional IRA, and that's giving them a head start. I see a lot more of the younger generations putting money away in 401k Roth accounts. And this is going to be a game changer when they are retiring. So typically when someone retires in an optimal situation, they have three buckets of money. They have traditional 401k, Roth 401k, and an individual brokerage account. Most Americans just have traditional 401k. Maybe if we're lucky, they have an individual brokerage account. And if we're super lucky, they have a pot of money in the Roth account. Now, there's something very special about Roth accounts and to some extent brokerage accounts for people who have a next generation, meaning they have children or someone they want to leave a financial legacy to. Roths can be passed to the next generation tax-free and can continue on their tax-free status. Brokerage accounts receive a step up in basis at the point of death and can be passed on to the next generation. Traditional 401ks, IRAs are absolutely awful vehicles of inheritance. You're often just pushing forward a tax obligation. Oftentimes that tax obligation hits the beneficiaries when they're in their highest earning years, their 40s or 50s. And a lot of the money ends up either in state government or in federal government. So I do take an eye towards that when we are talking about withdrawal strategies. And I actually have active conversations with clients when I'm doing retirement planning who have a large amount in a traditional account that they really need to endeavor to spend this money while they are alive. There are other assets they can leave to the next generation, but a traditional 401k IRA just isn't it. The next thing, there's a couple of things that you need to know in the withdrawal strategy. First, traditional and Roth accounts, technically you can't touch it without penalty until you're 59 and a half. I know it's a weird age and you have to calculate out exactly when you're 59 and a half, but 59 and a half is an important number for now. That can change at some point in the future. Required minimum distributions have to be taken from the traditional accounts, whether that's a traditional 401k or IRA when you were 73. You do not have any required minimum distributions on a Roth account, but you have it on traditional accounts. That may change at some point in the future, but currently that is the organization of our tax structure. You do want to keep on top of any sort of tax law change. The big beautiful bill just passed that has created some taxation changes to Social Security. That is important in planning out your withdrawal and tax strategy and retirement. So you do want to pay attention to those important numbers about when you can access the money, when required minimum distributions are due on the account, and when and how. About considerations of inheritance. Like I said, if you want the next generation to receive something, Roth IRAs and brokerage accounts make good vehicles of inheritance, but traditional accounts are terrible vehicles of inheritance. Plan your withdrawal strategy at least a decade or more in advance of your retirement. Reason being, it's expensive and hard to move around money between these buckets. Sure, you can do a recategorization from a traditional 401k to a Roth 401k, but you have to find a year, a low earning year where it's appropriate to do that. And you have to immediately pay all the federal and state taxes due on the money. And it's just, most people just don't have the resources to pay, and you can't pay the taxes from the retirement account. You have to have the tax money coming from somewhere else. Most people just don't have it. And you're often in your higher earning years, in your 50s, maybe even into your early 60s. And it just becomes really hard to do a recategorization at some point in the future. So it's best to avoid doing recategorizations if you can, and just put the money in the appropriate bucket to start off with. So if you want money to be in a Roth 401k, just put it in just contribute to your Roth 401k versus trying to recategorize all of this in the future. It can make sense to do a recategorization at some point in the future, but that is a determination to be made by an accountant or a financial advisor, and it's probably a little bit too complicated for this video. I do personally believe that we're going to be paying more taxes in the future. You can look at the size of the national deficit and the big, beautiful bill, which is going to add to that deficit by trillions of dollars. That money has to be paid back at some point in the future, not too distant future, in order for the US government to remain solvent. Where is that money going to come from? It's likely going to come from the taxpayer like you and me. I do believe taxes will likely be higher in the future, and I operate from that perspective in dealing with my clients. So I'm going to switch over to my computer, and I'm going to show you a very simple scenario of how we do planning for withdrawals. And this is an interplay. This is something a financial advisor could do, but really it's a financial advisor and an accountant. And we have special software that typically does this information. So I'm going to switch over to my computer. Okay, I've made it to my computer, and we're going to go through some numbers for a withdrawal strategy. We're going to mix this one up a little bit. This is an individual who retired at age 62. They are single and they have one adult child who is financially independent, but it's going to come into play when I go through the scenario. So usually when I do these scenarios, the person is single and without children, but this person is single and has a child. Their social security is $2,000 a month, which is $24,000 a year. They live in an area where they need about $55,000 per year to make ends meet. I'm projecting an 8% return and 3% inflation. This is a very simplified, streamlined version of withdrawal strategy. People usually have much more complicated withdrawal strategies. What can complicate it? If you're married, if you take the standard deduction versus you itemize your deductions, you live in a high tax state, you're moving to a lower tax state. There's a bunch of other variables that typically come into play with it. But for the moment, we're just going to look at the most streamlined example: a single individual with an adult child retiring at 62 with Social Security and needs a certain amount of money. And I'm not going to talk through inflating Social Security. I can't do that because I don't know what the Social Security index is going to be for each year in the future. But I did inflate their needs by 3%. So this 55,000 is going to go up each and every year. So this individual at age 62 has three different types of accounts. They have a brokerage account, a traditional IRA, and a Roth IRA. And as I mentioned, this is relatively rare because usually someone who is 62 now doesn't really have a Roth IRA. They're lucky to have a brokerage account, and everything is socked away in the traditional IRA. But if this person is Gen X or millennial or Gen Z, they'll probably have a brokerage account and they'll probably have a Roth IRA. This just comes with greater knowledge and greater sophistication about the investment process. And a lot of the younger generation are learning about the investment process on social media. So social media has been very good for helping the next generation in terms of retirement planning. So we're going to start this off, and we're going to start off with 216,000 in the brokerage account, 272,000 in the traditional IRA, and about 108,000 in the Roth IRA. and they need a withdrawal of about $31,000 a year from any of these three accounts in order to make this work. Now, I also want to point out this person clearly has more money than the average retiree has right now for their retirement saving. But the money, the dollar figure isn't as important as the process we typically look at in terms of deciding which account to draw from in retirement. So this person has done a good job. They have more than the average American saved away for retirement. They're retiring early, technically at 62, and taking their Social Security benefits. They come, they sit in my office and they say, okay, I have these three different accounts with three different sums of money. What is the best way to go about withdrawing this money to minimize taxes and also optimize the length of money in the account so that if I have a very long life, I won't run out of money? And of course, as a financial advisor, I would ask a lot of questions. And key among the questions is what state are you planning in retiring in? Are you married or in a relationship? Do you own a home? Do you itemize your taxes? I probably would ask to see the last 3 years of tax returns just to get a general sense of what this person is paying in taxes and what do they have any dependents or anything like that, because that all factors into the equation. We're not going to do that here because that's getting into the weeds, and this software isn't sophisticated enough to be able to do the calculation. But basically, it's learning about the person's tax situation, where they want to retire, what their income needs will be, and also if they have any inheritance desires or they want to leave a legacy to the next generation. And in this case, the answer for this person would be yes, they have a daughter or son from a prior relationship who is a financially independent adult. They would love to be able to leave something to the next generation, but they just don't know what. Okay. So this person retires, they need this 31,000. Do I take it from the brokerage account, the traditional account, or the Roth IRA account? Typically, in a straightforward situation like this, we want to drive down the traditional IRA account first. Why is that? There's several reasons for this. First of all, this person's at a pretty low tax bracket. They're at 55,000 a year. One other question I may ask about children is what does your child do and are they financially doing well? Let's say she raised a kid who's a lawyer who's doing really well, blah, 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 blah. So what I'm automatically thinking is if this person, the client departs the earth with a balance of $500,000, their kid's going to have to pick up the tax tab on the money and pay it out within 10 years of inheriting that IRA. It's probably going to hit in the kid's highest earning tax year. If the kid doesn't want it, it's a hassle. This would be better for this individual at age 62 and beyond with $55,000 a year of taxable income to really spend this money themselves. And that's what I'm thinking in telling this person to run down the traditional IRA account. I'm also thinking if we let the traditional IRA account grow, by time this person is in their early mid-ish 70s, the value on this account probably will have doubled. There'll probably be in good scenario about 600,000, maybe a little bit more in the account. At age 73, they're going to be forced to take required minimum distributions for this account and pay taxes on all that money. Let's take the tax hit now. We don't want to pass that tax hit to the next generation. And we don't want the balance on this account to grow and have to pay an enormous amount of taxes when this person is in their early 70s, 73. So what we're going to do is take a look at the Social Security check and the withdrawals. And as I stated, I didn't inflate Social Security. I can't because I don't know what the Social Security index will be. But we're going to basically draw this account down to next to zero. And if we're doing 31,000 a year inflated for 3% for inflation, this account should be empty by the time this person is almost 70. Okay. So when this person reaches the age of 70, or probably before this person reaches an age of 70, we take a look at this and we say, okay, the traditional IRA is almost out of money. What account do we draw from next? So we have a conversation and decide that the brokerage account makes the most sense. So the brokerage account started off at 216,000 and it's grown over the years until age 70. Now that person has $360,000 because they didn't touch the brokerage account at all. They just let it grow. And in this case by 8%. So now they have 360,000. So now we have a conversation. We're going to take out the 40,000 a year. It started off as 31,000, but now it's 40,000 because of inflation. And we're going to move that forward from here on out and use that for living expenses. So move that forward a couple of years or many years. Now the person is 82. Okay. So from taking out about 40K per year, by the time they're 82, it's about $56,000 a year. And that has whittled down the brokerage account. So by the time the person is 82, the brokerage account is at pretty much zero. So that's pretty much empty. Now, the average life expectancy in the United States is about 78, 79. This person may be dead. Okay. And let's say this person dies young at 79. What does this look like for the next generation? So at this point, they would have the next generation, this person's daughter or son would have $160,000 in a brokerage account, and they would have a pretty decent sum of money in the Roth IRA account. Okay. So the Roth IRA account would be completely tax free. And the brokerage account here, they would get a step up in basis, right? So meaning they don't have to pay taxes on it. The new basis is set at 159.98. The government just calls it even. There's no taxes due. So we've managed to make a wonderful tax-free bequeathment to the next generation. If this person is 79, their kids are probably in their 40s or 50s, and they'll appreciate receiving the money without any sort of tax obligations involved. So you're starting to see the power of proper tax strategy planning. Also, because we're drawing from one account and leaving other accounts to grow, it creates more money in certain accounts to be able to draw from at certain points in the future. But let's go back to reality and say this person is alive and well at age 82. So this person now needs about $56,000 a year, and they have depleted the traditional account, and they are on the verge of depleting their brokerage account. So next we go to the Roth account. Okay, so we started off with 108,000 in when the person was age 62. By the time this person is 82, if they haven't touched this money, it should actually be about 500,000, which is a pretty considerable amount with an 8% return. Okay, so then we go to this bucket to start taking out the rest of the money. So we go along and keeping the withdrawals. By the time this person is 90, they're basically keeping 70,000 or taking $70,000 a year from the account in order to maintain that $55,000 a year lifestyle that they set up. And let's see if the Roth IRA holds out. So yeah, the Roth IRA actually did hold out. The Roth IRA held up. And with all things said, this person probably would die with about $250,000 left in a Roth IRA account that can be a gift to the next generation. Do I think this person would really die with $250,000 left in the Roth IRA account? No. Emergencies happen. I'm sure this person would want to take some trips. Maybe this person needs to buy a new car. Someone has dental problems. Rent goes up. Things change. And I think a $55,000 a year lifestyle, maybe for a baby boomer or silent generation would work. I think for Gen X, millennials, and Gen Zs, this would be super tight. But maybe in some part of the country, this would be doable. But my fact stands that with creative interplay between these three accounts, this person could really optimize their tax strategy, possibly leave a tax-free inheritance to the next generation, and potentially live a very long life, which 90 is considered a pretty long life. Even if they lived a bit beyond 90 with proper capital management, they probably could make it. This is what we're talking about when we talk about withdrawal strategies. And like I said, planning a withdrawal strategy for retirement actually starts decades in advance. This is not something that can be done on the eve of retirement. For people who are Gen X, millennials, and Gen Zers, I really do encourage you to look at these three account types. Having one traditional IRA or 401k really, save for retirement, get it in any way you can. But the real power comes from having three different levers that you can pull. If you only have one lever to pull, this kind of loses its magic because there just isn't much we can do to make this better or optimize the tax situation. But this is just a little example of what proper withdrawal strategy planning and tax planning can do. Who does this work? Financial advisors will do this work to some extent. I know enough about taxes to be dangerous. I can do it, but I typically do this in conjunction with an accountant to verify that what I'm doing is correct. You don't want to do this type of planning too far in advance. If you're doing it at 40, you have 25 years for retirement. The tax strategy, tax planning will likely change in advance of that. But no matter what happens in the taxation system, I'm knocking on wood here, no matter what happens in taxes over the next 20 years, I think it will always be an advantage to have at least three buckets to pull from in retirement: a traditional IRA 401k, a brokerage, individual brokerage account, and a Roth IRA, Roth 401k. Now, people may have other income. They may have real estate. They may have investments. They may have deferred sales account and all of these type of exotic things. But I really wanted to make this straightforward and understandable as possible and not get too far in the weeds. I will tell you this, rich people do this all the time. Middle class and working class people, not so much, because they don't know that this is an option, and they don't know that balancing three different buckets and planning for the next generation at the same time can really make a huge difference in taxation and also taxation of the next generation. So there you have it, a very basic example of how withdrawal strategy can benefit you as a retiree, but also your next generation if you have a desire to leave assets to the next generation. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you like and tell me what you don't like. And if you found this information useful, please share and subscribe.